about overcoming. And so you got we're talking about your story about
how I got where I'm at
yeah,
today.
where you at. Like, what did you have to, what were the preconceived notions, and what were the struggles, and what were the obstacles and the hurdles and the arguments?
Okay. Well, as we were discussing earlier, I always felt that I wanted to be a professional in the workforce. And my sister and I, when we were younger, we're just 16 months apart, we would play moms. Of course, she was always babysitting my child because I had a briefcase. I didn't have the standard thing that a stay-at-home mom would have. And I always had aspirations that I could do both too. The older I got when I was younger and discussing my aspirations with my mother, and now being an adult and seeing how my mom was raised by her grandparents, and so she didn't have a lot of a huge female a role model for her to push her forward with her dreams. And I recall discussing with her about wanting to be a lawyer, and she had said that I should aspire to be a secretary. And of course that just incited me more to follow my passion. Now, not having the financial resources to have a typical college education, because I wasn't able to do that.
Let me back up.
Sure.
Why did that make you aspire more strongly?
Because I was told what to do, and she put a ceiling on what I could do. Yeah.
How did that make you feel? How old were you?
About 17.
Okay.
About 17, 18, because I wanted to go to college. Putting those limitations on me, then I felt, well, if I can't do it in their home, then I need to do it in my own home. So, of course, got married young when I was 18, and the path was supposed to go a certain way, and it didn't. And we were married 2 years and divorced when I had a 6-month-old child. So I'm the mother of 4 sons. And so I was a single mom for a while. I worked 2 jobs and took paralegal courses at night. So I thought, well, if nothing else, I have to be employed to support us, and I want to be in the legal field. So that was the next best thing, because again, for law school, it's a bachelor's degree and then 3 years of law school. And so I knew that on the path that I would have to go on a part-time basis, it was going to take me some time to do that. And in paralegal school, I was able to meet some friends, and one of them worked at Provost and Umphrey in Beaumont, and heard of an opening, and it wasn't a secretarial position at the time. It was actually a file clerk to a legal secretary.
Okay.
So I was
like
bottom, but I could get my foot in the door, and I knew if I could get my foot in the door that I could sell myself. And that's what it comes down to, is selling yourself. It's like believing in yourself enough to say, hey, I have these qualities, these traits, and these assets, and these gifts and talents that are going to be beneficial to you, and let me join. So again, I think I told you off camera that, I always believe, I have a very strong prayer basis. And I always believe that, your spirit guides you and leads you, and everything happens for a reason. And every door that you open or close or whatever, it's going to lead you where you're supposed to be. And we're always in life going where we're supposed to be. Even where I'm at now, I don't even really know where I'm supposed to be in 2 years from now, or what I'm going to be doing in 2 years from now that's going to be where I'm supposed to be at that time. And I lucked in, got an interview, and lo and behold, in speaking with the legal secretary, well, she was from my hometown, she knew my family, and of course, she asked me the question, do you know Word Perfect? And I did not know it very proficiently. So I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And I left that interview. I went to the bookstore. I bought a book on Word Perfect. And I didn't get to do a lot on the computer because a lot of my tasks were filing. And, I was a gopher. I did this. I made copies, did things of that nature. On my lunch hour every day, I sat at my computer and I taught myself Word Perfect. So where we had cubicles at Provost Dumfries. And so my cubicle was next to a new attorney. She was a new hire. And her legal secretary sat next to me. And so we were about the same age, so we, befriended one another. And so when she had a lot of things going on, I would help her through lunch and make her copies and all that, even though my assignment was for a partner in the firm. So lo and behold, one of the partner's legal secretary was leaving. And he had a very difficult paralegal to work with. So no one really was interested in taking that spot because his paralegal was so difficult. Well, going back to my paralegal school, she actually was one of my paralegal professors. And so her name was Dorothea, a very sweet older lady. All she had been her whole entire life was a paralegal. And she was probably in her late 60s at that time. And the attorney partner had a class actions lawsuit against FINA for H2S exposure, which is hydrogen sulfide exposure for this whole subdivision in Port Arthur. And so she had I think there were 283 clients, and she had discovery responses due on all 283 clients. And so I would talk to her and chat with her every now and then, and I'd tell her, if you ever need anything, let me know. And she's like, okay, thank you. Well, the partner, he had seen that I could get along with Dorothea in conversation, and I'd ask her questions and, just good morning, how are you, and such. And then the other female attorneys, they really liked me, so they encouraged me to talk to Mr. Palmarosi about being his legal secretary. So I went in and discussed it with him. He said, you get along with Dorothea, don't you? And I was like, oh yeah. I said, she's fine. I've never had any issues. And I said, I found that she was a great professor and I learned a lot from her. And so pretty much he said, you're hired. So then I went from the file clerk to the legal secretary, and I kept with Dorothea. I can help you whatever you need. Let me know. And I took care of his other civil cases. And then one day she came in and she said, Scharlene, she said, could you help me? And yes, I'm here. You tell me what I can do for you. And then from there, it was just, we did a very good job for Mr. Palmarosi. My inspiration for law school, actually, the belief that I could go to law school and do law school actually was formed by Mr. Palmarosi, and that he planted that seed for me. So the seed of the fact that you too can do this. That you can do law school. You're smart enough.
What were the conversations?
So I went in there to ask him a question, and he was making another vacation plan. And he was a great guy. We had a great relationship. And I said, another vacation, Mr. Palmarosi? And I said, I do your job very well. He goes, yes, that's why I can go on vacation so much. And I said, no, I'm just kidding with you. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm kidding. And he said, I'm serious. He said, you should go to law school. And so at the time, I said, oh, Mr. Palmarosi, I said, I have to go back to college. And then I'm calculating in my head. And I said, I'll be 35 before I graduate law school. And he looked at me and he said, Scharlene, he said, you're going to be 35 anyway. So why not be 35 and a lawyer? And I said, really? And he said, girl, you can do this. You can do this. And so that was inspiring to me, and it's always resonated with me. And at the time, I remarried in 1992. It seems hard to say 19 before something in date. And so my husband at the time was in the oil field, and his parents wanted him to go to law school. So I'm still working at Provost Dumfries, and he's doing law school applications, and he gets accepted to Cooley Law School in Michigan, Lansing, Michigan. And so my husband did, okay. Yeah. So we decided to all go together. So I had my son from my previous marriage, and then we had a child together that was about 7 months old at the time.
And how old were you now? Then?
26.
Okay.
Yeah, about 26. So we went to Lansing, Michigan, and I got a job at a huge law firm downtown. And I was a legal secretary during the day to an employment lawyer and a real property lawyer. And our kids were in daycare and such at the time, and it's a huge transition to go from Texas to Michigan, and with no family and small children. And so my husband and I made a decision that I would take the nighttime position so I could be home during the day with the children, because his class was in the afternoon and he needed, to not have the kids in the morning. And it was a mutual decision on our part that we would do that. And so I was a night secretary. So I would work from 5 to 9 p.m. every night. And with that, I worked on every floor of the law firm. I touched in international law, environmental law, family law. It was fascinating to get to assist with those secretaries with their documents. And most of it was, and it was the old days, can you transcribe the letter? So you put the headphones on and you type the letter while they're talking to you on it and produce the draft and have it ready for the attorneys to sign. And there was an international attorney at the firm, and she was Russian. And we, again, conversations, befriended, and she was also very encouraging me to go to law school. So while my husband was in law school, he did 1 year and decided he did not like it. And he came back to Texas to go back to the oil field. And I had decided to take a few community college classes. So I took an English class, a math class, and a Spanish class. And still not having, a high level of confidence in myself and in education. Again, I wasn't a stellar student, but I loved learning and wanted to, say, okay, well, this is going to be my pathway. If I've got to have a bachelor's degree, so I might as well start with a couple of classes now. And I remember sitting in it was the very basic, 101 or 131, whatever number it was for English. And it was English, it was the writing class, where you're starting to write essays and such. And so we'd read short stories and write an essay. And I remember after I wrote my first essay, we were in class and we were reviewing it. And he says, okay, well, we're gonna look at this essay and I wanna show you the structure of this essay. And he goes, this is the essay that I think is a fabulous example of what I'm looking for. So lights go out, Elmo goes on, and it's my essay. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I talked to him afterwards. He said, you have a fantastic writing style. And I was like, I'm 26. I'd been out of school for so long. And again, not a stellar student. I was like right at the middle of my class. And that was encouraging too. And just all these things that kept me going and knowing that, I might have something here. I might be able to do this. I really might be able to do this. And then it just started from there. We came back to the Beaumont area. I went back to school, and I had another child while I was in undergrad. And again, I was looking at being a business major. But I was really more towards the arts. And it's again, just the talents that you have. It was like business economics that was a struggle. And I know I had all these business classes that I had to take, and I took a business law class, and it was a fabulous class. And Dr. Mulvaney was the teacher of that class, and her husband was actually a judge in Beaumont. And so I took my third Spanish class, and that's when I was approached by the department head, and she asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I want to go to law school. And I told her, I said, I want to go to Texas Tech School of Law. And she said, would you consider switching your major, because I have scholarship money and I need a female Spanish major to award it to. And I said, yes, ma'am. So I said, I will take that. And so I switched my major to Spanish, and then I focused on an English minor, not declared minor, but an English minor in that.
And your major was what then?
Spanish.
No, but what was it before
Oh,
Spanish?
it's business. So you're
okay.
You're
Right.
talking kind of two different worlds
Sure.
in that sense.
Yeah.
And then that's when
But was your goal law school?
my goal was law school.
Okay, so the undergraduate major is not exactly relevant.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And I had read so many books about how to get into law school. And so I had this one book that I read, and it's like how to make yourself to be the perfect candidate on your law school application. And it was a little bit of school, and it was a little bit of your personal life, and it was a little bit of community service. And so I was able to do a checklist on all those things and being very involved in every aspect of it to make myself a well-rounded candidate. I switched my major, and then I continued. I thoroughly enjoyed writing, and so I continued my English classes. And I took this one English class from one of my professors who was a published author. And it was writing with style. And it was writing with proactive voices and not using passive voice in writing. And a lot of other, tricks of the trade, I guess, in English. And I remember my last paper was a 4.0 paper. And he said, Scharlene, you have now mastered writing with style. And I still have all those papers to this day. I have every paper that I've written that I have comments. And when I need some assurance or reassurance in myself, I'll just go back and read my papers and I'll read my comments. And I was like, they believed in me. And they inspired me to continue on my path to do better. So, I did, I had like a 3.98 in my major when I graduated. 3 kids at the time, 3 boys at the time. And I was studying for my LSAT in my last semester of undergrad, and it was the fall of '99. I'd gone in to take the test, and having test anxiety when it comes to standardized exams, and so I try to talk myself off the ledge. And
how do you do that?
Mainly breathing, mainly telling myself, you've got this, you know this material. Just focus, and it's mainly just keep your mind from wandering, just to stay on task. For me, it's like, okay, this question, and just being a cheerleader to myself, like, you've got this, you know this, you're good, you've got it. Well, I kept getting ill during the taking of the test, and so I turned my test in, I got sick, come back, and so the next day, I was bringing my youngest son, Connor was almost 3 at the time, to the doctor for just a checkup. And our doctor was actually a deacon at our church. And so I taught CCD to 4th graders at our Catholic. It's catechism classes for Catholic Church. So I was one of the lay teachers that taught the sacraments for the 4th graders. So he and I were having a conversation, and he knew I was taking my LSAT, and he said, how did it go? And I told him, I was like, oh man. I said, I kept getting sick during the test. Looked at me, and he said, you might be expecting. And I said, oh, no, there's no way. And he said, let's do a blood test real quick. And so he did. And he comes back and he goes, yeah. So, and I was like, oh no. And I will tell you, that was not in my cards, because I had 3 boys. I was like, okay, now I've got law school. And I had seen what my husband had gone through with law school. Your first year of law school is gruesome. And so I was like, okay, all right, Lord, this is our plans. Okay. I was like, how am I going to do this? I said, I can't give my dream up. This is what I want to do. And so my husband told me, he said, well, you're probably going to not be able to go to law school. I mean, you can't do this. And so I was like, I can't do this. I mean, if this is the plan, I can figure this out, because I did undergrad with my children, and I had, 2 young boys, and then I had one right in the middle of the semester, and 3.98 GPA. Yeah, I think I can do this. And then that's when my in-laws had stepped in, and my father-in-law told me that, what did I need an education for? What did I think I was going to do with it? And that my place was in my home, behind my husband and with my children. And my response to him was, well, my husband works in the oil field, which is a very dangerous profession to be in. God forbid something happened to him, how am I going to support my family? And so it didn't deter me, and probably pushed me to say, oh wait, I am going to do this, and pushed me a little bit more.
So just like when you were 17, when somebody says,
yeah, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to find a way to do it. Yes, exactly. And so anyway, I took the LSAT again, did really well on the LSAT the second time, and they average your grades. So, I had a good one and a bad one. So it turned out well for me. I graduated December of '99, and I had already put my application in for the scholarship. And so we're rolling around to February of 2000, and my due date for my youngest child was May. And he was a rather large child, and I was rather large. And I get a phone call from Dr. Mulvaney, who was the chairperson over the scholarship, who I took business law from. And she said, Scharlene, she says, we have 3 applicants for 2 scholarships. And she said, I think I have to go ahead and form a committee with this, and I'm going to have to call you all in, and we're going to have to go through an interview process. And I sat there for a second, and I told her, I said, Dr. Mulvaney, with all due respect, I said, I didn't think that it was necessary for me to tell you that I was expecting my 4th child, but I am. And he's due, May, I think it was May 10th or something at the time. And I said, this is going to be a rather big boy. And I said, I'm a very big person at this time. And if you put me in front of a panel, I said, all they're going to see is a large pregnant woman who wants a scholarship, who wants them to give me money to go to law school. I said, they won't see my accomplishments. They won't see that I was president of the Spanish Honor Society. They won't see all the things that I have done, that my husband has been in the oil field the entire time of my education, and I did it with raising my 3 boys, and I did it.
You're all just self-doubt talking.
Yes, yeah, and I told her, I said, and I did, I said, if you have to put me in front of a panel, and I know I added more things to it. I mean, and I didn't realize what I was doing at the time was actually advocating for myself. And I said, if you have to put me in front of a panel, then I respectfully withdraw my application. I had already been accepted to St. Mary's, and they had given me a partial scholarship. And I said, well, I'll go to San Antonio instead of Lubbock. And she sat there for a second. She said, okay, Scharlene. She said, look, I'm going to call you back. And she said, I'll probably be in 2 weeks or so. So she called me back, and I answered the phone. Of course, when we had house phones. And
Man.
Hey, did they already leave?
Hi.
Do you need me to sign for it? Oh, Lord.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Last name?
Valdez. Okay, I guess they must have already left. I am so sorry about that.
It all gets cut out.
Okay. So within the time that Dr. Mulvaney said she would call me back, she did call me back, and I answered the phone, and she said, Scharlene, it's Dr. Mulvaney, and her first name's Tony. And she said, congratulations. She said, you're a scholarship recipient to the Texas Tech School of Law with the Presidential Scholarship from Lamar University. And I lost it. And I cried and screamed. And then when I composed myself, I said, I'm so sorry, Dr. Mulvaney. I said, I thought you were having to do a committee. And she said, oh no. She said, I went back and reviewed everything. And she said, and I made an executive decision. Any woman who could make her argument to me as clear, as concise for discrimination, and the fact that all that you have done would not be seen by your appearance just there. And she said, you're going to be a fabulous attorney, and I cannot wait to see what happens in your life. And she said, so congratulations. And she said, can I share something with you? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, I was on partner track for a law firm. I was the only female associate, and being on partner track, you put in a lot of hours as an associate. And she said, and I knew I was partnership worthy is what she called it. And she said, but I met my husband, and I fell in love with my husband, and we wanted to start a family. And I didn't see why me being a partner in a law firm was going to interfere with me being a mother. Well, they saw it differently, and they refused to consider me for the partnership track. And she said, that's when I knew that I needed to step away from that and She said, and my passion was in education. She said, so that's why I became a business law professor. But she said, I too was discriminated because I wanted to be a mother. And they did not see what all I had done for them. They were judging me because of being a female and wanting to be a mom. And so I went and I made her proud, and I called her, I think I called her last year. No, I called her earlier this summer, and I just reached out to her. And I had not spoke to her in some years. And told her, I said, hey, I just want to let you know that I did well by you, and I did well by the scholarship, and this is what is going on in my life. And she was so proud. She was so proud of me. So, yeah.
Here's what I thought you were going to say. Well, you're being chosen because you did have one child, and then a second child, and then a third child, and you did all that when your husband was away, and you went to school, and you worked, and it's like, and why shouldn't we get
Exactly.
It's like you're proving exactly what it takes to become the person that we all expect you.
Yeah, and I think that was her factual basis that she relied on, and then the fact that I could argue my case why, so, but yeah, I was very honored to receive that. So, and I did well in law school.
Okay, so did y'all move to Lubbock?
Yes.
Everybody moved to Lubbock.
Everybody moved to Lubbock,
Okay.
and husband still continued in the oil field.
Okay.
And my first year, my baby was 3 months old when I started law school. So I will have to say I was very blessed. I befriended someone in my first day of law school and contracts class. Her husband was in the oil field, and she introduced me to a fabulous nanny that I had. And so Miss Kelly, to this day, we're still friends with Miss Kelly, and she took care of my boys while I was at school. And then I had a nanny that would come on the weekends because I had to put in that time on the weekends too. And Miss Morgan would come in early so I could go study. And then I was home around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then I had the rest of the evening. But Friday nights were always off for my kids. So I'd come in from school, and we would have a free-for-all Friday, pizza, movies, everybody just decompressed on Fridays, and the boys loved it. They loved it. So.
What were the negotiations you had to have with your husband during all of this?
Negotiations as
Well,
to
cooking, cleaning, childcare, lessons, sports,
it was all
homework.
It was all on me because he worked in the field. So
So how long? I mean, it varies. So he's
Yes.
gone sometimes, but home sometimes.
he was gone sometimes and home sometimes. Yes.
Okay. So when he's home,
Gone more because this was a period of time where the oil field was not doing very well.
Okay.
So in 1997, August of 97 is when I had my third son. And I took that semester of school off. And my husband was home for 2 weeks after I gave birth to Connor. And he really didn't come home until April of 98 because they were moving his rig, and he was a directional driller. And so if he stepped down, there were plenty of people who wanted that spot. It was a follow me rig. So he wanted to stay with it. And between the scholarships I was getting from the Spanish major, and then I did borrow money to cover childcare while I was in school, and then he was taking care of the rest of the finances for us.
Okay.
So that pretty much was our agreement. He'll make the money, and then I just. I'm a relatively organized person, and I can, see what needs to be done and take care of it and get it done. So, I was blessed with very good children. If you ask them now, I've got, of my 4 sons, 3 of them in the military. So my baby's a Marine, Connor, my third son, is a soldier, and my second son is an airman. So,
Army soldier.
I'm sorry?
Army?
Army soldier, yeah.
So Marines, Army, Navy.
Air Force.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And the fourth one?
He is in the medical field. He works for a medical device company as supply chain, and he's an amateur golfer. So he just qualified for the USGA Mid-Am in Wisconsin in September. So that's his athlete. He's by far one of the greatest athletes ever. I mean, he just has a natural gift for athletics. So.
And what's your husband's name?
Well, it's my former husband.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. So how did y'all handle being away from each other? How did he handle fathering from where he was?
Yeah.
What was?
We had each other's backs. I mean, we had a good parenting plan. You know, if I said something, it was as if we both said something. So he would always, support me. I didn't like to say, well, when your dad gets home, I that is just to me.
What, in 6 months, Mom?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Or, I didn't want the boys to, just not want their father to be home. I didn't want them to have a feeling of like, oh, I don't want dad to come home. I'm a mom and I can discipline, just like him. Now, they knew if they got in trouble and I handled the situation, that their father will also hear about it. So we had a rule that when their father came home, the first 24 hours was nothing but glad to see you, go to dinner, loving on the boys and just spending time. When 24 hours was up, then we'd have family conversations. This is what your mother has told me has been going on. And then, he would discipline whatever he thought was necessary on that. But I always had his back too as well, to certain extents. So we had some differencing in parenting style, corporal punishment and different things like that. We had some difference of opinion on. But for the most part, the boys, I didn't really have a hard time with the boys. They knew that what our mission was, and our mission was this is we get up, we go to school, we learn, this is what we're supposed to do. And we all have our roles in the home, and they were really good about that.
We'll go back, they probably won't use this, but what's the difference between a good mother and mediocre bad mother? What was the hardest part? What do you see mothers do that good mothers do? What makes a woman a good mother?
In my opinion, what makes a woman a good mother is you have to have a dual role. You need to listen, and you need to be attentive, observe, but you also have to be stern, and you have to what you say you have to mean, and you have to follow through. You never
both good and bad.
Both good and bad. Also, I think as a good mother, you need to say when you make mistakes too. And I know with my children, if maybe a situation escalated and I maybe got a little bit more hot-headed than I should have, the first thing I'd say to them when I cooled down, I would always say, I need a mommy timeout. And the boys would be like, okay. And so I'd walk away from the situation. I'd come back, and then, if maybe we got a little heated, I'd always apologize. You know what? I probably shouldn't have reacted that way. And I said, so this is what we're going to do going forward. I had the perfect plan with them as far as discipline is, sometimes we wake up in a bad mood. So so you're cranky when you wake up. Maybe you don't want to get out of bed. And we tend to always take things out on the ones we love the most. So I had a system of one erase. So that means if you did something during the day that you were going to get in trouble for, but you could articulate what you did, why you did it, and why it was wrong, then you could use that as one erase, and then it would go away. In the criminal world, it's just like a deferred adjudication. But that would give them an opportunity to learn about choices and then the consequences of good choices, bad choices, and knowing that, oh man, and sometimes when you're a teenager, some things just come out of your mouth that shouldn't come out of your mouth. and disrespect. And I always commanded respect. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Always manners. Always.
Yes, sir is one of those things that shouldn't have come out of their mouth.
Probably not.
Oh, sorry, Mom.
It was always yes, ma'am to me. I still, on the bench, sometimes I get yes, sir, and then they look, I'm sorry, ma'am, you know. But my youngest one, he would wake up sometimes in a foul mood, and he would just be, you know, really cranky. And then I'd go back upstairs, Cole, get up. And he's, and I said, do you want that for your erase today? Yes, ma'am, please. Okay. Now, get ready. And then they would know to be on their best, they would know to be on the correct behavior for the rest of the day because they've already spent their one erase. And I've watched my sons use it with their children too. And so I always thought that was really good. And the boys said, you know, Mom, it gave us a chance to reflect. Like, oops, I should have said that. And so instead of you punishing us for something that came out, we were able to say, I'm sorry, Mom. And I had this thing with the boys, because when you're, oh goodness, sometimes when they'll fight, you know, I didn't tolerate, you don't fight with your sibling. And your sibling's the only one that's gonna always have your back. I mean, you can always count on your sibling. And I had a rule that if someone screamed and said, Mom, if I came in there to solve the issue, everyone gets in trouble. But if you solve it and fix it without me coming in there, then they're learning to solve their own problems with one another and dealing with one another. And I watch them to this day. They are the closest of friends. And I love it. They have group chats with one another, and all four of them are on it. And they'll tell stories from, you know, Brock from his golf tournament, or the other boys from, you know, their day in the service. And it just makes my heart proud that they get along so well, because that's your legacy. That's your children are your legacy. And so I think being a good mother, and of course being older, they say you have more patience and a little bit more wisdom and such. And I think that is true. I think my patience and my tolerance is so much more now than when I was younger. But my husband now, I'm married to Mike Valdez. We've been married for 3.5 years, but he has no children. So he's come into the marriage with 4 stepsons, you know, 2 daughter-in-laws and 4 grandchildren. But his comment to me is, I've never seen a mother-son relationship like you have with your boys. And he said, they come to you for everything. Like, it's a safe space. And to be a really good mom, you want your children to know that they can come to you with anything. The good, the bad, the ugly, you know,
How do you
whatever.
do that though? What's the difference between instilling confidence in a child that they can come to you and completely erasing any confidence in a child that they can come to you? What's the difference?
Completely erasing confidence in them?
Yeah, like what do you, in family court, what do you see parents, what's the most egregious mistake parents are making?
To use the children as a weapon. This is what I tell parents when I've seen a really bad case where mom says ugly things about dad, dad says ugly things about mom. I tell them, I said, at one point in time, you loved one another to bring this child into the world. And so he's half mom, half dad. So Mom, what do you think it makes that child feel like when you're talking ugly about dad to the child? Oh, he's a loser. Oh, he doesn't even pay his child support. Or, you know, oh my gosh. And I said, but that child is half dad, and that child recognizes, hey, half of me is dad. So, you know, it's very hurtful. It's very hurtful to put the child in the middle. And parents need to be mature enough, even after divorces and such. I mean, they have to find a co-parenting road. And you may not like that person. Obviously, there's reasons why you're not married to that person. But you've got to it has to be child-centered, child-focused. So the conversation shouldn't be about what mom's doing with her life or what dad's doing with his life. It's what is our lives doing to affect our child? And it should always stay, hey, you know, Billy had an A in math today. Great, that's awesome. So there should be, I believe there should be like daily communication, just like a homework folder goes on home every day between a teacher and the parents. If one parent has the children during the school time and gets that homework folder, the other parent should text the other parent and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know these were his grades today. You might want to reach out to him or something. And always have open communication, because the child is going to, the child senses conflict, they truly do. And I've seen kids where I've had great co-parents, and these kids have turned out fabulous because they have the level of confidence of knowing that mom and dad are there. And with my first husband, we weren't friends after the divorce or anything, but was always focused on Brock. And my son had off the chart level of confidence in himself. I mean, he thought he was the best. And that's what every child needs their parents or grandparents or such to think that they are like winners, like they're the best. Because you need that safe zone thinking, because they're going to have self-doubts themselves. But if they know that, man, mom thinks I'm awesome, that's great, because you've got one person or two people. You're supposed to have two people in life that think you're just the cat's meow on that. And I would, for Brock, he played every sport, excelled at every sport. We would sit by his dad and his stepmom. Birthday parties were always with his family involved. And high school graduation announcements, I pick up the phone, I called Brock's dad. Hey, you want to send one invitation? This is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? Can I add your name and your wife's name and your other child's name to it? So Brock always had this united front, everybody. My parents would go to the games. My ex's parents would go to the games. My kids grew up calling, my younger three grew up calling my oldest sons, it was Mama and Pawpaw. They called them Mama and Pawpaw. And so we're just this big happy family, even though, it didn't work out between his dad and I. And so to this day, I mean, he's got a high level of confidence, and it's wonderful. So but to be a mom, and sometimes parents can get in and try to micromanage everything, and you've got to let your children kind of make some mistakes on their own, make some decisions on their own. But I think listening is a huge asset for children, because they want someone to listen to them. And I do quite a few child conferences when I have cases, and I just let them come in and talk to me. I don't even really have to ask any questions, because they'll tell me about their life. And it's so innocent and pure that they can tell me so much, as if I'm like watching TV and I can see what mom and dad are doing wrong just by what the story they're telling me. Yeah. So
okay, so you are about to get your own courtroom.
Yes.
And that's a huge step, I guess?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So it's County Court at Law number 6, and it was designated the home court for juvenile cases, and it's a civil court as well. So the jurisdictional limitations for that court is up to $250,000 for damages and such. So historically, the juvenile docket in Montgomery County has switched every 2 years between 3 different courts. So it's never had its home court. And so this is huge for the juvenile department in and of itself, to have one judge who's going to be the consistent judge that hears cases here on out. And the court was created a year or so ago, and I announced I was running last year. And I ran up until December. I was unopposed, and then after the deadline for filing, I ran unopposed. So I'm only one on the ballot in the primary, only one on the ballot coming up in this general election.
Who's going to
wonder
who's got that in.
Yeah, and the commissioners and Judge Keogh on June 14th appointed me as the CCL judge and started my court early. So it should have started statutorily when the election was, so it'd be January 1st of 2023. But August 15th, 2022, they started it. So they funded the court, and it has just been a whirlwind since then. So.
How are you handling the cases? mentally and emotionally? You have a process to de-stress? Does it stress you out much at all?
I'm probably at my peak of stress right now, trying to finish up my 418th obligations, plus going into a different area of law. I mean, because I've been in family law and child welfare law for so long, since 2008, and I'm double board certified in both of those areas of law. And so now I feel like it's new challenges because I want to become board certified in juvenile law. I want to just get in and master it. I think that, and I've had this told to me too, that my experience both in family law and child welfare law is going to do or bring a new insight into the court, because I will be focused on the children. But the main part or the main point of juvenile is to rehabilitate and retrain and to prevent them from becoming a member of the criminal world. You know, it's an opportunity that we can get these kids at a young age who commit some crimes, that we can give them the counseling, or maybe it's drug issues, turn them around in drug court. You know, we have a power recovery court, which is in essence a substance abuse drug court, alcohol too. And so we spend time with those kids and get them sober, and their months of sobriety, their days of sobriety. And so it's, I feel like it's a very hands-on opportunity to influence our young kids in Montgomery County and make good changes. We have a fabulous juvenile department in Montgomery County. I have spent the last probably 6 weeks visiting with every department in there. Bruce Gussler is the director of the juvenile department. He has welcomed me into the juvenile world's open arms. I've met every member of his staff. I've sat and spoke with most all of his staff. I think the one section I've left is the field operations, which is the juvenile probation officers that go out. But I've answered questions, I've asked questions, and I've just educated myself on the world of juvenile detention. Of course, reading statutes and such, but I'm looking forward to it as a challenge, and I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be, because I have a unique insight into the family world in of itself.
Sure.
And in family court, we see good people on bad days. And where I'm hoping that the reaches of the juvenile also extend to the parents. And so can we help with the parents having issues? What can we do to help this family so that this family goes forward and not backwards?
So. You don't have to answer this, but I'm going to try to get as personal as possible.
Okay.
Because it is those deep, dark moments that people don't want to face the most, that you try to avoid, that are most difficult to handle. What was the deepest, most difficult series of events or person? Like, was there any betrayal or paying back the money or feeling like the mental and emotional part of it, the relational? What was the toughest thing that you had to face?
In my personal,
like you had 2 divorces.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which
Was any of that? Were those the darkest times, or?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll delve into this. Probably my second divorce. I mean, no, honestly, if we can't let 18-year-olds drink and smoke cigarettes, we should not give them the ability to get a license to get married. I mean, without some educational courses or something like that. So I chalk that up to, that wasn't a bad situation. We were both young and both very, very immature. So it wasn't a bad type situation. I mean, he did step out of the marriage and ask, Brock and I to leave. But I was so young, and it like I said, we both made poor choices. The second marriage, we probably had more of a volatile relationship. in that sense. And as I said, we probably didn't have we were not on the same page as far as discipline and how you speak to your children. And I love my mother to death, but my mother was an abusive mother. So my mother was physical with me and verbally with me. And then sometimes I would have the days that were good, they were good. They were great. Most of the time it wasn't great days. And so pretty much that's why I said I'm getting out at 18. I saw my high school sweetheart as an avenue to get out. And so that's what I took. But I didn't understand my mother's history, her story, until I was older and she was sharing that with me, and a lot of it made sense. It was like, oh, I understand. So she didn't get the help that she needed. I'll say that over the years, I've done a lot of soul searching. I've done a lot of introspection and looking at myself. And so I vowed as a parent, words are not weapons. I would never use words as weapons. I have never called my children a name. I've never said, you're stupid. Why? Or, those hurtful things. On the other hand, my spouse at the time, he would say some of the meanest things. And to me, words cut and words stay with you a lot longer than if you had a physical altercation with it. And I knew that he and I were not destined to stay together forever. I tried to stay in the relationship as long as I could, and I wanted it to stay until my youngest one graduated high school. And again, prayer comes into a lot of this, and just give me the strength to get through. I only have 2 more years. Just give me the strength. And there was a particular situation, and it was just he and I. We were going to go to dinner, and we had a lot of issues with his family and interjection in our family business and such. And I was always on pins and needles, and I always had to watch my words because I didn't want to upset him. And that particular, it was the Tuesday before the Thanksgiving holiday in 2015. I just remember it like it was yesterday. And we were meeting at a restaurant, and I said, whoever gets there first, go ahead and go get a table. We discussed all that. And I'm waiting for the table. He calls and he's cussing at me. And I said, I'm inside. And so of course, he comes in. And so we sit down and we order. So I'm thinking it's just going to be one of those dinners, and we'll make small talk about the kids, and it's going to be fine. And then he starts yelling and screaming at me and cussing at me and using, just horrible. It was horrible. And I sat there for the moment, and I had my head down. In the restaurant, everyone's looking at us. And I had this epiphany. I was like, Scharlene, you're a family law attorney, and you represent women who are abused women in situations like this, or abused men too, because I do believe that both happens. Absolutely. And so I was like, I just had that revelation, and I was like, you're in an abusive relationship. And I was like, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this. What am I teaching my children if I stay in something and I acquiesce to all this behavior? And at that point, I just made that decision. I was like, I can't stay. And so I decided that I was going to choose me and choose my boys, and we were going to be in a healthy environment. And so it took a while to get all that taken care of. But when your children tell you, Mom, I've never seen you this happy before. When you're in your own house with your children and you're able to prepare your own meals, and it was a very freeing moment. And I did not realize how toxic it was and how it had affected the boys. Why I, had made the promise that I'm going to stay, because I didn't want them to be, in 2 homes, and, I can do anything until the last one turns 18. So that was probably that was like the darkest time. And, you feel like a failure in that sense. You're like, did I give enough? Did I do enough? And if you truly start searching it and you journal, I'm a huge journaler, so I'll put stuff down. And going back over the years, it was the same things coming up and up. again, and I don't know, there's some saying about doing the same thing. Yeah, you probably know it. Yeah, exactly. But some of the, when I first came into family law, I was a CPS prosecutor for Montgomery County. So I saw the really the worst cases. And for me, being able, and of course I represented the department, but I was able to guide them through the law to give assistance to families. And it was always wonderful when we could reunite the family, just wonderful. And I remember there was one time when we had a case and there was no grounds for termination of the dad. And so, but the department wanted me to terminate this father. And the mother had already relinquished on these kids. And so they wanted termination. And I remember the judge telling me, counselor, have you talked to your clients? Because I don't see any grounds. And I said, yes, Judge, I have. And we were coming up on trial. And so I had to go to my boss and say, look, I'm giving advice and I don't feel like my advice is being followed. And so he was going to consult and just have a regional attorney come in and represent them instead of the county attorney's office do that. And I was talking with the attorney ad litem one day, and she said, I just don't understand why your clients won't return the children home. And I sat there and I was like, well, that's really a good point. I said, let's look up the statute. And normally in cases, it's the department who's the one that says, we're going to return the children home, or a motion for monitor return home. And so we're looking in the statute, and I told the attorney ad litem, I said, do you see where it's specific to the department? And she said, no. I said, well, you're the attorney for the children. Are you going to file a motion for the court to consider to return the children home? She goes, I've never thought of that. So the next thing you know, she files this motion, we go to court. And the judge is smiling and she's like, oh, counselor, I see your clients have taken your advice. Your Honor, that's not my motion. She said, I'm sorry. And I said, that's Miss So-and-so's motion. And she looked, of course she had she had glasses, so she'd look at you over her glasses. And then she turned to the attorney ad litem. She says, proceed. And so she argued the motion and she comes to me and I said, Judge, I said, we disapprove of the motion for monitor to return home as stated by my client. And she looked at me and she said, well, it's granted. So it took the trial away. And so that was one of those that was like, that was the right thing to happen in that case. And justice prevailed in that case. So, yeah. So there's good ones like that.
Kind of an exception to the usual process of
right.
things.
And that's the thing, you have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
So historically, only the department had been the one to file the monitor return home. And this time, it doesn't say that, it said this is the statute for the instrument for the judge at the judge's discretion to grant that. And so it worked. And so those, like I said, those are good cases. And I had a CPS docket myself where I was the judge on some CPS cases, and we had a really good return home rate, a good successful rate of therapy sessions and sobriety days and things like that. And I would always ask the parents, what have you learned during this case? I want you to articulate what you've learned. First, I always asked them, why do you think the kids came into care? So that they would understand the why. And then, what have you learned? And then, what are you going to do when you're presented with challenges when the department and the court's no longer in your life? And I've had some really good comments. And it's like, and I've had parents tell me, Judge, if it wasn't for this, I would still be doing the bad stuff. If it wasn't for the department coming in and taking my children and waking me up and realizing that I've got a choice to make. And I would tell them, it's your choice. You can choose drugs or you can choose your children, but you can't choose both. So make your choice and let us know what your choice is. And when they were faced with that, it was like, oh, I've got to make this choice. I said, we're here for whatever you need. And the department has really good resources for them, counseling and therapy and drug counseling and substance abuse counseling. And, and I told them, I said, if you get in and you work your plan and you utilize these resources to your best of utilization, like commit, you have to commit, because you can't do it halfway. And I said, you're going to see in 9 months a change in your life. And I know part of the department, they'll use some of the successful cases to come back and talk to the other parents in there. And it just comes down to making that choice. Yeah.
So, in a general sense, to wrap up, this is what sticks out to me about your story, because this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
It takes the right people to see you for who you are, and encourage you in the direction that naturally suits you. Yeah. I think otherwise people, they have, and I actually posted a lesson on this. It's like, I can be very stern in some of my lessons. It's like, you don't love me, you love the idea of me. And you probably love the idea of yourself more than you love me. Because you're not paying attention to who I am.
Yeah.
You're only paying attention to who you want me to be for you. So, when somebody, it's like, you have these natural gifts, and then it just takes the trajectory and direction that's pulling you, and then you find the people to continue to validate which way you're going.
Right.
Is that?
I think that's fair to say, yeah. And I think your gifts come out. I think, I have patience, discernment, in listening to both sides, and making that, because when it comes down to it, the judge is the one who has to make the hard call on things. And so you have to have a level of discernment and of recognition and of patience, and doing the right thing, doing what's within your authority under the law. Yeah. You can't go rogue. Yeah. So I always, my authority is within the four corners of the statute itself and the big books. And usually I tell the attorneys, I say, here's my authority in the four corners. So if you're asking me to help you make the choice in here, this is what my guidance is. And I follow the law. And that's what I'm supposed to do as a judge. Neutral. I don't favor one side over the other. I listen to both sides. I allow them every opportunity to call their witnesses that they want, to tell me what they want, to get in the evidence that they feel the court needs to hear, within the rules of evidence, of course. And then I make the decision in the end. And I've had one attorney, not specifically tell me, but did tell my husband. He said, I'm going to miss your wife in family law. He said, I may not have always agreed with what she's done in the case, but I always felt that she was fair. I always felt that she listened, and I think that's the true sign of a judge, because you don't want the judge to go in and already make your decisions for you, because the judge hasn't heard anything. So I think allowing them an opportunity to present their cases and hear everything. So, and I think that's really the biggest thing too for attorneys coming in your court. I don't forget, not long ago, I was on the other side of the bench, so I know what it's like, to be before the judge. And I want them to know that, I respect them coming into court, I respect their positions, and I want them to feel that I've given them a fair opportunity in court. So.
How's your relationship with your mom, and how's your sister's relationship with you? Is she still alive?
My mom is still alive, yes. Okay. My sister has a very close relationship with my mother. My mother and I are close. We talk every couple of days and such. And, as we go older, you start reflecting on your life and mistakes. And there's times that, my mom will cry and she's like, I'm so sorry. And she said, you don't know how proud of you that we are. She's like, you're our everything. She goes, your dad has morning coffee in our hometown every morning, and she said, I know those guys are sick of hearing about you on a daily basis. And my cousin reached out to me not too long ago. She goes, your parents are so proud of you. And she goes, they talk about you all the time. And for me, I always felt that maybe I didn't live up to like what my brother and sister did. And, you know, I had I called her an evil step-grandmother, but she babysat us one time. It was one of those things where she said, you're never going to amount to anything and you're worthless. And, you know, that stays with you, especially if your grandmother says that to you, even though she was my step-grandmother. And
It's an authority figure.
exactly.
And it's family.
It's family, yeah. So you know, those are all the things I chalked up, like, oh, you're not going to be this. Well, look at me now. And, you know, oh, you should stay. What do you need an education for? Well, this is why I need my education. This is what I'm doing with my education. And I have a heart of service, and that's really what I want to. I feel like I was called to do. And truly being on the bench, you are serving the people, your constituents. You're serving the people of the county that you are elected to preside over. And